Welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Zone. I'm your co-host, Tom Spitalere. Bob is out on assignment. Melissa's out on assignment. We've been very, very busy. The paranormal season has kicked off very heavy for the Essex County Ghost Project. We've already had 6 cases this year, so it's been a very hectic beginning of the year. The Paranormal Zone is set up so individuals and people who believe can come on this show and discuss. We don't do live, so we can actually listen to everybody's beliefs. So if you have a belief in UFOs, UAPs, or anything that go bump into the night, get a hold of us at the Paranormal Zone, and we'll be more than happy to reach out to you. You can reach me at Essex County Ghost Project too. So any one of those 2 sites. Today, though, we're moving into the warmer weather. New England, which I knew from England, still one of the oldest parts of the United States. We're moving into the summer season, the warmer season, the spring season, and this is the time to go ghost hunting. We're going to talk about some of the places throughout New England where you could go ghost hunting. Some are public, some you need permission, some you don't need permission. But I'll tell you, it's a place, New England's unlike no other place in the country or in the world. We got the eerie cemeteries, the old hotels that sit by the ocean and by the lakes. We have train stops. We have old taverns where sometimes brutal murders took place. We have all these great locations for the paranormal enthusiast. So we're going to go through some of these great locations. Emily's Bridge in Stowe, Vermont, also known as the Golden Brook Bridge. It's a covered bridge. Covered bridges are mysterious to begin with. Without wondering if she really was Emily, she really hung herself from one of the covered bridge in Stowe after her jilted lover. Someone once claimed they made up the tale of mysterious lights and disembodied voices, but I've read where paranormal investigators are actually picked those up. Another place that's this you need permission. It's in Laurel Hall Mausoleum in Cuttingsville, Vermont. It's a strange mausoleum drawn in Cuttingsville, Vermont, where a marble statue of a mournful man seems to seek the entrance to the tombs. That's John Bowman, whose wife and 2 daughters are entombed there. The hallways in the mansions he built across the way throughout his family reappear one day in the echoes of the wind. You can sometimes hear an infant cries. I've been to this location, Nancy's Brook in Jefferson, New Hampshire, which is part of the Ossipee Triangle. It's so on a very cold night in 1778, Nancy Barton took off into the woods near Jefferson in pursuit of her supposed fiancé, who had disappeared with her life savings. She was found soaked and frozen at the side of the brook and was buried there. It's now called Nancy's Brook, and you can hear her screams. I've been out there in broad daylight, could hear her screams. The Mount Washington Hotel, never been there. Carol Stickney, the widow of Joseph Stickney, built a sumptuous Mount Washington Hotel. After her second husband died in 1922, she came to live at the hotel and never felt, she said she never left, the spirit never left. It's been seen the interior of the balcony. So Caroline's spirit still roams. up in Maine, the Kennebec, Augusta boasts one of the spookiest places in the state, the Kennebec Arsenal. This grim structure was built as an arsenal more than 2 centuries ago to protect the town. And in its centuries ago, but tales of torment inmates, early hospital days have said to make phantom screams and apparitions happen. So that's very interesting. And this is a place I've been to and investigated, the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. It's a Greek revival home in Fall River. Witnesses have allegedly what happened was Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks, and then her father 41. Lizzie was acquitted of this murder, but an imagination with the B&B, and it's alleged that Andrew Borden's spirit, and actually on the second couch that's there, it's not the original, I actually channeled Andrew Borden's spirit on that couch. In the basement, we heard birds, and no birds around at all. I remember that. And then upstairs, we picked up Lizzie Borden upstairs where the maid's room was. So we had some interesting sights that night. That's for a show all to itself, but I just wanted to give you a few. Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut, dates back to the colonial times with it's about 400 years of interments. The white lady in her trademark gown bonnet roams along Route 59. I've been by this place, but I've never seen the red eyes at night in that cemetery. I've never actually investigated it, went there during the daytime, and didn't pick up much of anything. But we weren't even there that long. It was just a drive through, saw the cemetery, and stopped. So that's some of those. Also, too, locally, we have this place in Gloucester, Rockport, Gloucester area called Dogtown Common, part of the Essex National Heritage Area. It was originally settled in 1623 to 1643. It was on the high plateau of Cape Ann to keep those bloodthirsty pirates away from the homes of the people who lived there. And it was a pretty place to go to. There was a common shepherd to keep an order of livestock, and then what happened was the decline of Dogtown happened around 1750. It was a steady fall from grace. People wanted to be closer to the ocean, so they kind of let Dogtown go, and it became known as Dogtown because you could hear the dogs barking. And it is written about 60 widows of a Revolutionary War soldiers were among the wretched forced to live in poverty. So their husbands lost their lives in the Great American Revolution. It happened 250 years ago. And these women lived out their lives in a very hospitable place. It was also known for squatters, old hags, and witchcraft later on. So it's done by the society such as witches. These witches were known for casting spells. The last inhabitants was Esther Carter at 15 Dogtown Road. She was known for her healing abilities, knowledge of herbs. She lived off the land and had only 2-story home in Dogtown. Boiled cabbage seemed to be the plate of choice in Dogtown. She served it well. Esther had some interesting roommates Esther had some interesting roommates, including her life in the legendary hamlet, the Old Ruth, a freed mulatto slave who found the need to dress in male clothing and gain her wages doing heavy work. She went under the name as John Woodman and was quite apt at building stone fences. So in 1880, by 1845, the last of the houses at 11 Dogtown Road were torn down and brush began to overtake it. Later, there were stones put in by Babson College. Now, what happened at Dogtown when we were there years and years ago, I actually channeled something. And you could see a picture of me, then a picture of me going under, then the next picture was of a woman with a sailor's hat on. It was quite interesting. So that's one place we have been. If you ever get a chance to walk out in the woods and see the stones laid by Babson College, it's a great, interesting location and a great paranormal location. So I just want to make sure we know all of that. Other places of interest is the Sargent House at 49 Middle Street. This house was built in 1782 by Judith Sargent Murray, a philosopher, writer, and activist. So that's another location. That one you need permission. This one you don't. This is the legendary sea serpent. And I've done a whole podcast on sea serpents. But this thing had been around. The sea serpent has been around at least since 1638, and it was last seen around 2011, they believe. But there have been sea serpents or sightings like this all up and down the coast, from northern Maine to southern Maine to New Hampshire to Rockport. It's been called the Rockport sea creature, the Gloucester sea serpent, the Cape Ann sea serpent. It's been named so many, interesting names. So that's another place to check out. But if you like stones and walks in the woods, Dogtown is the place to go, and the Babson Border Trail. Also, we had dowsing rods moving at that location at Site 13. At Site 15, we also had some activity of spirits with the with the K2 meters going off. Heavy Native American presence also at an unknown site in that area. Site 17, Smith, we got hits with dowsing rods on that one all over the place. And there are still people buried on this property. We believe we found a graveyard on that property too, that's not on the map. So, again, another great location to go to. I'm always looking for great locations to go to. Another couple places locally that we go to a lot is the Hilldale Cemetery. 1853, one of the most haunted cemeteries in New England. We're there every night. We get a lot of different things. We see things. I've seen plenty of things. So, I mean, that's a great location to go check out. You do need permission for that. Yes. But yeah, Hilldale, Lady in White, children, voices, heads coming out of the ground, Pukwudgies or Pudgewucky, a little bit of everything there. I do want to remind everybody, but that place you do need permission. You can contact the Hilldale Board of Directors for permission at 978-376-287. And then we have the legend from Haverhill. Whoa, put the brakes on. Jonathan Buck. He lived in Haverhill, and he wanted to put a mill in at the bottom of the brook, and the people said no. They were so fed up with Jonathan Buck that he ended up moving. He was a colonel, so he ended up moving north, and they gave him a tract of land. They called it Buckstown, Maine. And he actually sentenced he actually sentenced a woman to death for being a witch. It might not have been a witch. She swore on her last breath that she would dance on his grave for all eternity. Buck died in 1797. In 1852, his children memorialized his life with a monument near the site where he was buried. But the beautiful stone has a blemish. Can't get it off. It's actually her leg. I've actually seen this thing. They've tried washing it off the stone. They've tried putting a new stone up. And every time they do something, the woman's leg appears. So she cursed him. Been to this location of Little Mercy Leanna Brown, who died of tuberculosis in Rhode Island in the town of Exeter. TB had swept in New England in the 18th and 19th century, so any graveyard you go into, you will find TB deaths. Every old graveyard that I've been into that are 18th and 19th century has TB. And the superstition of hearts in communities all along the region. It became a common belief that these spirits and loved ones lost to illness would return, infecting their poor souls. To protect against Mercy, the father exhumed her body and cremated her remains. Before burying her once more, ever since that day, reports of Little Mercy wandering through the village, strange lights in the graveyard, and many other odd phenomena happen. This is a classic New England ghost story. This is a beautiful element of the spooky tale. So, a place I went to years ago, Dudleytown, USA. It's really no longer there. It's cursed by the Dudleys. It was in a mid-century town, called Dudleytown, right near the New Hampshire, Shoretown, Mass, Connecticut border. And it was the town itself. It was cursed eventually around the turn of the 20th century. The last dwindling resident gave up and left Dudleytown forever. Slowly the followers swallowed it up. Now a private ownership, heavily patrolled, and you only gain access with express permission, so make sure you get permission. But that was quite the freaky place. And there's many other places you can actually go to enjoy a good ghost story. Any cemetery, as long as you get permission, you can go into. Most cemeteries are open dawn to dusk, but after dusk you need permission. So that might be a place to head to. All right. So that's a place you can go visit too. if you like going out to restaurants, I strongly suggest the Wyndham Restaurant in Wyndham, New Hampshire. That's well purportedly to be paranormal investigated by many teams. And it's a very interesting place. They've gotten some cool things at that location. Out in Drake, the Drake Village Inn, every time I go out there to eat, I get tugged on my pant leg or something. So that's pretty cool. That's another place to go check out and enjoy as we travel through haunted New England. Let's continue with the Sterling Opera House in Derby, Connecticut, one of the most haunted places in New England, according to many investigators and the research I've done. It was built in 1889. It remained open until 1945. Over the years, people like Bob Hope and Harry Houdini and many others performed there. These days, it's like the spirits are encountered here. There have been a number of paranormal investigations throughout the years here. Shadow figures, light anomalies, and sudden appearances of children-sized handprints. It's also been, besides children, people have picked up Charles Sterling, the man who the building was named after. Another old New England home. The Payne House was built in 1691 in Coventry, Rhode Island. And now the house is a museum as a local historical society. However, the main reason many people flock to this house is for the famous for being one of the most haunted places in New England. There are several spirits, but by far the most active is a young girl who had been seen in various rooms. Investigators have managed to catch her voice on an EVP and have witnessed her moving in a rocking chair on command. Here's one of those great cemeteries, Blood Cemetery in Hollis, New Hampshire. There's over 300 graves that date back to the 1700s. And over the years, the number of types of paranormal activity, the name probably isn't rooted in what you might first think. So they're not saying Blood Cemetery because its name is haunted. It is haunted. It actually, the story comes from a name of a ghost who was believed to be haunting the graveyard, Mr. Abel Blood. Therefore, there are numerous sightings of this guy, of Mr. Blood and his apparition, and sometimes the wife has been nefarious to head outside and, ghostly phenomena. And at Blood Cemetery, Mr. Abel Blood's apparition has been seen, not his wife. Another female has been seen there too. And supposedly the headstone changes color and the finger points downward instead of up. I have heard that happening in other gravestones. I've actually never seen it. We tried to grab a picture of it and didn't get anything. Then we got another big story out of Southington, Connecticut, the Demon House. One of New England's claims of this fame of the term of paranormal is where renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren are from. The couple both did come from Connecticut. This is also where they founded the New England Society of Psychic Research. So this is another house that's got some interesting stuff. Connecticut is also home to the Haunting in Connecticut, which is very interesting. Danvers State Hospital. been there years ago. Built back in on Hathorn Hill back in 1874, where the Salem witch trials. John Hathorn once lived. These days on Route 1 passes close remains of the hospital, but when it was built, it was on the rural end of the way, location approximately 20 miles north of Boston. It is one of the most haunted sites in New England, and you can actually feel the spirits as you walk through there. It is now all been redeveloped, so I would get permission first to make sure the person who gave you permission is there. Fairfield Inn in Kennebunkport, Maine. I stayed there 100 years ago, it seemed. Many of these mansions have been transformed into bed and breakfast hotels. This one was once home of Captain James Fairfield and is the spirit that allegedly haunting the property to this day. Captain Fairfield died just 5 short years after building this property in 1815. After falling ill, he was only 38 years old when he passed. So, again, another lingering house. We already did the Lizzie Borden. The Salem Inn on Summer Street. One of the most haunted hotels in Salem, if not the most. The ghostly encounters, unexplained phenomena in Salem are all over the place. Room 17 is the most haunted. Ghostly of a woman named Elizabeth or Kathleen had been seen in this spot. As the legend has it, she was killed by her husband, and the paranormal activity extends beyond the room, with unsettling instances occurring throughout the night. I was lucky enough to go there one day and do an investigation with another team. It was a pretty quiet night that night, but I have to say, from a paranormal perspective, Salem is quite the place. Anywhere you go in Salem, be prepared. It is literally be prepared. If you go into that location. All right. Some of the other locations that you can, we talked about the Wyndham Restaurant. That place is loaded with spirits and a fun place to go eat. Oh, here's another place, Portsmouth Harbor, Portsmouth Lighthouse, Whaleback Lighthouse, the fort that's right near Portsmouth Light. But this one, Whaleback, the Light of Portsmouth, has a large Newfoundland lab dog named Roscoe. On a dark evening in 1944, the ship Empire Knight was on her way from Boston to Portsmouth. She was hugging the shoreline off of Portsmouth when an unexpected storm came up and drove the ship into the ledge at the mouth of the Piscataqua River. Unable to sail to Portsmouth Harbor, she began to break apart. The keepers of Whaleback Light, led by Captain William J. Slavin of Havel, initiated the rescue. All the crew of the Empire Knight abandoned the ship, and many of them were sinking in the ocean. Apparently, they had issues of lightweight life jackets. So Roscoe dove in the water and saved them, a lot of the people. When the skipper and his crew and the rescue boats returned to Portsmouth Harbor with Roscoe and the merchant seamen, the Portsmouth Harbor, how bad it was, they actually gave him food for a long time. So that is one, that's another place to go check out. Another story came in an old history book that was actually repeated on TV, on Chronicles. The Pelham Witch. story has been passed down to the Munsley family of generations, and they're reputed to be true. You decide. Dr. John Mudsley of Pelham moved his practice from the town of Peterborough to Pelham in the mid-1800s. One fall day, the doctor and his wife started their journey back to Pelham to visit her relatives, the Butlers, yes. In Amherst, they traveled on horse with their son-in-law, Solomon Prince. Therefore, according to the doctor, was a steady old rag. When they got to Pelham, the doctor visited the old woman who said to him, I'm reading this actually because this is interesting. The woman, so what happened was the doctor studied old nag. When they got back to Pelham, the doctor visited the old woman who owed him a bill, and the woman had a local reputation of being a witch, so she's known as a witch, even better. And on the way back to Peterborough, after she grabbed his money, the lawyer succumbed. So you got the Pelham witch now running around. So those are just some of the locations that are actually pretty cool to go visit. Hannah Jack at the Common Man Restaurant in Merrimack, New Hampshire is another location. I know people who have actually been up there and did investigations, and that area up there is pretty interesting. It's right off the Daniel Webster Highway. Dr. Thornton was one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago. His story entwined with rich history and astounding women who became namesakes of the tavern and the later restaurant. Hannah Jack was born in 1742 to a family in Chester, New Hampshire. Sometime before 1747, Andrew Jack was a Presbyterian. He listed in the census as being employed in the warden. Her mother, Mary Morrison, was listed as wife. Therefore, originally, the Scottish descendant moved to Ireland, and Dr. Matthew Thornton, at the age of 18, married a 47-year-old person older than them by 47 years. And the first marriage was for both of them. Hannah and Matthew had 5 children, 4 of whom survived to adulthood, and their names were Andrew, James, Matthew, Mary, and Hannah. I mean, that's a pretty cool story when you think about it. So if you ever get a chance to go up there and try the food, you might even get spooked out. So that's another great location to go to. Another one of the cemeteries you need permission is Vale End Cemetery. The Paranormal have known photographs of a blue streak rises out of Mary Witter's grave and Mary Spalding. The husband of the two thought it would be prudent is always to bury their second wives with this first and let them share the headache. What a comment to make. So Valen, I know people who left there sick. I actually know someone who left there sick and then ended up passing of a heart attack. She did have a bad heart. So always have to be careful when you're going into these places. You never know what you're gonna get till you get there. Other haunts, my old college, Bradford College, down North Point Bible in Bradford, which is a section of Haverhill, Massachusetts. There's been seen women in the basement. It wasn't all women's finishing school at first. Men, apparitions of men and women seen all over those buildings. So it's quite an interesting place. You might want to try to get in there again. It is closed, so. In North Point Bible, it's real hard to get back in there because, you know, they just want the bygones to be bygones, which is understandable. Tortilla Flats, ate in there after a case and was touched multiple times. So I was trying to eat my nachos. So that just throws that real interesting at the end of the day. How these spirits all come together after tragedy, and they really want to introduce themselves to you. And at Tortilla Flat in Merrimack, New Hampshire, it's nothing different. Where they are on investigation, my shirt was getting tugged the whole time. So another interesting place. If you ever get out there. Pine Hill Cemetery in Hollis, also known as Blood Cemetery. The person has been acquitted of a name as Abel Blood on a tombstone. Is reported to be haunted by him out there. So that would be fun. We've never been there, but I would definitely lace up the boots and head out there. I think it would be pretty cool. So if you ever plan on going to a lake, head to the Bridgewater Triangle in the area of the Lake Ossipee and the, sorry, not Bridgewater, the Ossipee Triangle, which goes from Salem to Jefferson, Jefferson to Somersworth, and back to Salem. Nearly impossible to find that whole area and investigate. But there have been UFO sightings, lake monsters sightings, so take a ride down Route 16 and 16A and B and enjoy the sights and keep an eye in the sky. And with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We will be back to our regular scheduled show next week. Thanks again. This is Tom, the Crypt Keeper. I'm heading back to my crypt. Good night.